What up, bro? This is Kilos and we're back. Today we're going to go over Lowrider trends from 1985. I scanned my personal Lowrider magazine collection from 1985. We're going to be going over some of the trends and kind of looking at kind of some key things that kind of stuck out. During this era, Lowrider magazine did not put too much emphasis on setups, so there's not really too much information on what some of these cars had, but we're going to go through the magazine. I scanned all of this stuff myself, so feel free to drop a like, comment below. Just be cognizant of kind of what the wheels are, color options, interiors, and overall aesthetics, because 1985 was a wild one. So now let's get into it. So 1985, for the first month, you know, we have that 54 Bel Air on the cover with a button tuck interior. We get into that 77 Cadillac. It has a California top, true spokes, has some graphics, you know. And then for the bike, we have this ET bike. It is a pretty much fully molded frame. In this era, we didn't really have the classifications based on how many body mods, but it has a diamond tank with the full skirts in the back to go to the sissy bar and a half molded rear fender, and the front fender is custom as well. We also have the square twisted fork. It has a little bit of a lean to it, which is pretty nice, and the square twisted handlebars. No sissy bar, short kickstand. The wheels, this is pretty much top of the line. It looks like it was re-chromed, so a lot of OG Schwinn parts with a solo seat. Feel free to pause this and read this. And then we get into this Monte Carlo. It's a 77, true spokes, candy paint. And then this is the feature of the month, Candy 54. This is out of Stockton, California. You can see some pinstriping. It's hard to tell with the wheels, but during this era, there was pretty much, you had true spokes, you had Star wheels, you had McLean's, Roadsters, and Dayton's were the Zeniths, obviously. These are possibly Dayton's. It's hard to tell because it didn't really specify. The Lo Camino, which is 74 El Camino. This is out of Salinas, which is still NorCal. So, I mean, NorCal is really predominant. That's where Lowrider magazine was based out of in the beginning. So, you know, you got some airbrushing on the trunk, some pinstriping, beautiful paint job on it. So these actually look like Dayton wire wheels. So you got a couple cars that were running Dayton's. Typically for NorCal, they were actually rocking Zeniths more. And then we get Bodyman's Dream. This is a car out of Kentucky. This is actually, if you remember the Hillbilly Hopper, this is him. He did his shit during the 90s. This is to kind of show that they were low riding in the Midwest. Then we jump into February 1985. We got Caramel Delight. So we have a Monte Carlo, it's a 77. Monte Carlos were really popular. You got to remember, it just was a very popular car at the time, Montes. You had Boulevard Nights and things like that that really popularized the Monte Carlo. Beautiful car. Again, these may be Dayton's. Looks like a cross lace wheel, a diamond interior or diamond pleated interior. This is Pink Lady. This is based out of Sweden. This is more of a radical build. This car was not on fluid, so I don't believe it had adjusting suspension, but all the parts were chromed. It did have gull wing doors like off of a Mercedes, like a SL. It had a wide body, square headlights, candy paint with airbrushing. The overall aesthetic is more true to the customs, but it also did have that lowrider flair to it. But again, this was not a cut car, but this is an iconic car, you know, in lowrider history. Chain link steering wheel, everybody kind of knows when you're talking lowrider history, they know about that Pink Lady. And then we're gonna take a look at this bike. It has flat twist sissy bar, tall sissy bar, tank up front with paint job, and then the fork is kind of funky because it has flat twist. This is essentially the stock fork, the non-Springer fork, which makes me guess that this probably was not a Schwinn. This was probably an alternate, but he raked out the fork a little bit and did that strut support on it. Obviously welded it. Mirrors down there with some velvet and velvet on the seat. The steering wheel looks like a steering wheel off of a car, and then obviously the headlight has some velvet on it as well. For, 1985, this is February of 85, so this is actually photographed probably in 84. And then we get this Super Sport 64 Impala out of Group. A lot of people would say that the rags weren't really that popular until the 90s, but we're going to see that that is not true. But what is true are these wheels, because they're 14x7 true rays on 520s. And then we have this 66 Impala rag as well on trues with the fifth wheel, Switch Car Club, so out of Oxnard, California. And then we get Malibu Blues. This is out of Salt Lake, Utah. So just to let you guys know, I mean, he's sitting on trues as well, but these are, you know, these are the shit, you know. 77 Malibu out of Salt Lake. Then March of 1985, we have Master of Class. This is a Cadillac chop top with the button tuck interior on trues. Typically, you don't see this done as much anymore. This is a 63 Impala Super Sport. You got the candy paint, you know, some graphics on it, and the airbrush on the trunk. He's also sitting on trues. Look at those funky mirrors on there. That's like the mirrors that came from factory during this era. One mirror, looks like a stock interior for the most part, but yeah. And as you can see, it says lifts because they used to say, is the car lifted? Or, you know, we use the term cut now, but is it on lifts? That was just the terminology during that era. And then we get this car out of San Jose. And then we get the lowrider of the month. This is the Aslan Cruiser. This is actually a Ford, but this is kind of treading the lines between custom and lowriding. Obviously, it's a cut car, but the graphics are more true to what you would find on a custom during this era, at least, or I mean, of the latter year. Has the visor. Again, this is a Ford. He has the spotlights on it. It's a lifted car, obviously. He's sitting on some true spokes, some 14x6 true spokes to be in particular. He also has Frenched antennas and some custom Frenched taillights. Beautiful car. I think this gentleman actually worked on the strip somewhere. So the cover photo for 1985 for this month actually had his car on the strip. Beautiful car. This just shows that, you know, people were riding whatever they had. I mean, typically you don't see too many Fords anymore, but badass car. Red Zeppelin off a Lifestyle Car Club, sitting on some trues, also 520s, which were the tire of choice, you know, during this era. Red Zeppelin was definitely a popular car. Candy paint job. The trunk, unknown, but it's probably some finer stones. So then we got this 83 Regal. This is definitely like an 83, the 80s paint job. Then we got some true spokes on it again. San Gabriel Valley. And then we get April 1985. April 95 is kind of when you get the first woman kind of somewhat naked. Previous issues, you don't get that as much. So this is the first issue where you kind of got a semi-naked woman, which we'll definitely see later on in the Lowrider magazine collection. We open this magazine up and we get to see this beautiful, it looks like a 73 Impala. You know, sitting on trues, airbrush trunk. And then the Aztec sculpture, sitting on trues, but we're going to take a look why they're calling it the sculpture, right? So we get into this trend that was very popular during this era. People would take their Bondo, because it was somewhat of a new, readily available tool, and then they would try to create, I want to say monstrosities, but they would create these types of flares, and they were kind of sculpting with it. Obviously, we know today that you want to use the least amount of Bondo if you're using metalwork. 100% cool if you're trying to create a custom one-off piece. But when you're using Bondo, that's just going to crack, especially the more that you cake it on. But we get this sitting on trues. In the engine bay, you can see it has like a velour all around wrapped. Definitely something that of its era. The velour would typically smell when you go to a car show because it just holds that smell in. This whole trend right here is all trends of latter year. You know, we talk about trends that come and go. This is definitely a trend from the past, but this car is from El Paso. So this is a very popular trend that you would see in cars from New Mexico and the El Paso area. So, and then Vegas Blues, this is, you know, obviously a 64 Impala, rag again. So it's from Vegas. The paintwork with the inside of the trim, it's something that I want to say is nostalgic to this era. You still see cars do it, but I feel like this is when it was pretty much most prevalent. The coach, this is the actual lowrider of the month for this month. It is a Pontiac sitting on Dayton's. The woman is actually the guy's wife, but he went through, re-chromed everything. During this era, bombas were very popular. You know, they still are, but in this era, this is what we would consider like an old Impala. These were the old cars from latter years, so these actually held a little bit more prominence because these are what people remember for being a youth, you know. Sitting on Dayton wire wheels, you know, beautiful car. And then we get the Lowrider bike. This is a little bit of a crate fork. It's stretched out. It's not stretched out, but it's longer than what you would typically see. But there's a rake on the frame. Nice bikes, especially for this era. And this is out of Richmond, California. Latin Lords. This is a 63 sitting on Trues. Beautiful 63. I think this is one of those cars that are timeless that we can get into. Don't know what the setup is like, but I mean, you see a beautiful paint job, sitting on wires, sitting on 520s. If this car pulled up to a show today, I feel like it would still turn heads. You know, sometimes some cars out of latter year don't do the same, but this is one that definitely looks good. And then we got a delivery van. It's a beautiful car, step out, sitting on some cross lace. These look like Trues as well because they're bolt-on. So yeah, I'm assuming that these are Trues. But overall, definitely you could tell that this is the 80s. But then we're going to get into the following month. So this is May of 1985. Cover is a full custom car. I mean, if you want to take a guess where it's from, I can tell you it's not California. Then we get to Watts Life. This is a 66 Impala. Badass Impala sitting on some Daytons. The interior is a bit dated if this car pulled up today, but everything else about this car, I mean, shit, it looks pretty clean. The interior, you know, you get the swivel seats, full button tuck interior, but you got the JVL speakers. TV in the dash. Sweet Desire. This is out of Salt Lake City, just to show Salt Lake City was still doing its thing. You know, you got the flake. You could actually pick that up pretty well in the photo. Sitting on Trues, but Salt Lake, man, in the 80s. So you got exclusive. This is a paint job that is very prevalent to the 80s. I remember seeing cars when I was younger right around with this. So essentially, if you were in California, it was during this era, and then everywhere else was almost 10 years behind. So seeing cars like this, it's just pretty wild, you know. Rivieras are still popular, but to see this type of paint job definitely shows its era. Again, sitting on Trues. And then Night Crowd Lincoln, beautiful Lincoln sitting on Trues. The Coachella Valley Show, just to show you got some diversity. You know, you had a custom up there. It looks like a Merc. Impala hop in, and then you get the Impala at the bottom. It has a California roof, button tuck interior, sitting on, it looks like McLean's. That one's on McLean's, it looks like. Then you got Mr. Custom out of New Mexico. Damn, my bad. I said it was out of Texas. Same difference. I know you guys are going to roast me. Whatever. It's just of that era. You got Riviera parts up front. I'm not even sure what kind of car this is. I'm going to assume that it's some type of Buick. Yeah, based off of the hood. I think it's a Buick. But man, and then it has some of that Bondo you can see on the side for that sculpting. Some random ass wings on the back. Gonna keep it a buck, man. These are cars that I'm happy that have kind of faded out in low riding. Not my favorite style personally. If you like it, that's cool. Drop a comment. Tell me why you like it. But man, it's definitely interesting. And then we get into June of 1985. You got this New Star Lincoln. This Lincoln is actually very well done. It actually was one of the first first cars that had a switch to like a actual controller, a remote controller to have the setup done. It has a remote control. So this Lincoln I think is done very well for its era, especially. If this were to pull up today, I think it would still turn heads. Even with this interior, if the interior was kept up, I feel like it's done pretty well. It has the 44 because, you know, stock Lincoln. So for 79 Lincoln in 1985, this car is practically a 4-year-old car. This car is bad. It's a clean ass car. So props to this one. If this one's still pulled up, I think this would still turn heads. And this was shot in Elysian Park. You could definitely tell that this is Elysian. So then we got this Professional 63. Professionals Car Club. What else can you say, you know? Los Angeles. Sitting on some Daytons. Top is dope. I mean, Ted Wells probably did a setup in this one. Then we get the 66 Caprice out of Salt Lake City. He is sitting on some Kragers, right? Is that Kragers? I think so, but the knockoff on there is confusing me out. So if you know the answer, drop that below. But just to show, you know, you had clean cars out in Salt Lake. Seems like every issue so far, we've had one feature from Salt Lake, you know, the Village. So this is the car of the month. This is out of New Mexico. The paint job, not my favorite, but it's done in to kind of show off kind of this era. You know, you got the splotches or the paint patterns. You know, the interior sitting on trues as well. I think this car was lifted, or it had a setup, and they pulled it out because they didn't like how it rode. So now it's on stock suspension, just of the era. Then we got this Monte Carlo right here with this airbrush job. This airbrush job definitely reminds me of late 80s, early 90s. It looks like Cretex paint, you know? It's all thick and it doesn't look like really automotive paint even, but it's of its era, you know? Somebody got an airbrush gun. Sitting on some McLeans, so Randy's Candies. That's pretty funny because it doesn't look like candy paint. Then we get this 57 Malibu, Watts Life, you know. The brothers seem to be more towards Dayton's no matter where they are, but they definitely rode on Dayton's before a lot of the other ethnicities, it seemed like, and that's documented in Lowrider magazine. There's also a bias that Lowrider magazine did not show as many brothers as they showed Latinos. A lot of people have a misconception that lowriding is only a Latino thing, but we know that that's factually not accurate. There was brothers, there was white boys, there was Latinos. Everybody kind of came together, and whatever ethnicity you were, it didn't matter as much because you were lowriding and you guys came together, you know. Then we got the Hulk bike. It has a stretched fork on it, so it's more like a chopper, double headlight, raked on the fork. It also has, I think this image was reversed, or it may not have been actually, because the chain is actually on the other side than it typically would be. But looking at it, I'm trying to look at the kickstand, but it's actually hard to tell. I remember seeing a bike very similar to this when I was growing up here in Cleveland. It was called the Green Pea. Damn, I wish I had pictures of it. It might be actually the same bike, just repainted. If anybody has pictures of that, please drop it below. I'm pretty sure that I remember seeing this bike as a youth, but I'm not for certain. I'm pretty sure though. I'm gonna see if I have pictures. I know I might have pictures of it somewhere. And then we got this Sleeping Beauty. It's a 62 Impala sitting on some true spokes. You know, Latinos classic, you know, 14x7s, which seemed to be a popular size at the time because it was pretty similar to what you were rocking normally. You know, cars of that era came with the 14-inch wheels. So, you know, you'd naturally go towards another 14-inch wheel, but, you know, most lowriders today use 13-inch wheels. We get into July of 1985, you know, you get a woman in a bathing suit. Again, this is ahead of its time. You know, you got to think with that mindset of what was going on in the 80s. You know, this is, today we see women half naked all the time. You know, you just open up the gram and it is what it is. To see this shit happening in the 80s, bro, it was like, oh shit. But again, we get another rag top, 66. You know, it's lifted. It's out of, this one's actually out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. For being a New Mexico car, bro, it's clean. The Wizard, this is out of San Jose, California. You know, airbrush on the trunk, pinstriping, sitting on, he looks like he's sitting on Dayton's as well. Yeah, those look like Dayton's. You know, you don't see too many Cutlasses anymore, but when they were still a newer car, you definitely saw a lot more of them. He also has the moonroof in there, which I know was a rare option for a lot of those Cutlasses. And then we get to the Lowrider of the Month. This is Queen of Hearts. Man, somebody liked Bondo on this one. This is a lot of things about this car I'm happy that have faded out of the spotlight. So first off, we're going to start off, Lowrider feature of the month is a 4-door. We have Frenched antennas, but the antennas are actually shaped like a heart. Those little pull-out TVs, center console, that's true of its era. Button tuck interior with the swivel seats. Okay. The taillights on the back, he actually used Bondo to kind of create the heart shape. And like there's no chrome trim. All that went out the window, you know. And then on the top, remember we saw the Aztec, the sculpted Aztec. He used Bondo to kind of shape the top off again. Again, this seemed to be a popular thing in New Mexico and the Texas era. To my head, I can't think of any cars based out of California that really had this going on. This was southern, western southern type thing, but not California, just to be specific. Open it up, you know, you get a 62 grille with some Regal headlights. Somebody really used a lot of Bondo on this. Chop top. So, I mean, lowriding in California was this thing, and it seemed like the further you got away, the more people were trying to reinvent it almost and put their own twist onto things. Man, it's not that pretty. This is El Paso, Texas again. Ghetto Car Club out of SoCal. You know, some beautiful cars. The top one, the blue one, sitting on some cleans. And then we get the 59 down there sitting on some trues. I mean, these are some badass rides. Paint jobs, necessarily would they stand out today? Not necessarily. For its era, I think these are definitely ahead of its time. I mean, they were definitely pushing. Tape was a little bit different than back then, and I'm not sure what kind of paint they were using, if they were using still paint that actually had fish scales and things like that in it, or if that was actually pushed out yet. But I mean, overall, the quality is pretty much on point. It's for its era, it's definitely nice. Would it turn heads today? Not necessarily. It's still a dope-ass car to see of its era, but... And then we get the Imperial's wedding car. It's a glass house sitting on some trues. So Lowrider magazine usually would do a wedding. You know, a lot of people were younger in this era, and lowriding was smaller. So we knew people that were getting married, and we would say, hey, you know, let's take a look and see, you know, show some wedding pictures. And it's very common for the 1985 issues. Once we get into later issues, obviously you don't see that anymore. We got this Monte Carlo right here with this horrible paint job. It's probably one of the worst paint jobs I've seen on a car. And the crazy thing is this is Imperial's car, and I say that because I hold Imperial's to such a high regard. He's sitting on trues, you know, full velour interior. It's just that paint job has no flow with that body. These Monte Carlos are a beautiful car if you paint them. And they flow with the body, but this paint job definitely does not. And then this Monte Carlo at the bottom. The overall pattern style of the car is very nice because it follows the flow of the car, and most of the Monte Carlos that I know kind of follow that same body style. So this one is, and he's also sitting on trues as well, with the Flower Girls, that is. And then we're gonna get into Frisco 63. Man, this 63 is cold. If this car came out today, there's nothing crazily done to it, but if this car pulled up today, you would think that it was a modern build. Nothing crazy, no crazy paint jobs. He's sitting on stocks, which I don't know if it was more popular then or more popular now. I feel like there's always been kind of cars that were riding on stocks, but he's just riding on stocks, and the car's obviously lifted. So beautiful 63. There's nothing else you could really say. Then you get Little Dreamer. This is a Cadillac sitting on some trues. He has that skirt on the back. It's kind of funky to see. It's weird because most lowriders were trying to make their cars look newer, where this Cadillac tried to make it look a little bit older, I feel like, by putting the skirts on. There's always been a battle in lowriding where some people were trying to make their cars look newer, and some people were trying to make their cars look older, and then some people are just happy with the year that they got. So, and then we get into August of '85. We get Rising Sun, this Buick LeSabre. He's sitting on Dayton's. He has a moonroof, pretty much stock interior, a little bit of paint work on there. You know, he got some graphics. But let's check out this setup. So for this era, he has 4 chrome Finnerstone pumps. You could tell that they're Finnerstones because you can see the blocks on them. You see how they're rounded on the corner, so that gives you the indication that those are definitely Finners. During this era, Finnerstones were only made out of cast iron, so they had, when you cast something, it's hard to get it smoother. So they either did a lot of time in the machine shop to try to get these things smooth, or, I mean, these things came out great because in this era, there was no just buying stock chrome things. Everything was either sent out or things of that era. And then you can see he has the Rockford amplifiers. He has the fire extinguisher. I don't know if the fire extinguisher would be best in the trunk, because if that shit's on fire and you got to open it up, it's probably going to be rough to get to it. But overall, I mean, for the 80s, 85, a 4-pump setup, you know, I think he's doing a pretty good job at 72 volts, you know. I think this car was like definitely ahead of its time. And then we get this Buick Riviera. This Rivi's out of San Diego. This car has a California top. Paint job is very, very good. He has like some side skirts on it. It's kind of funky. It makes it look a little bit lower. I don't know if that's a custom thing or if that was actually a factory option. He looks like he's actually, it looks like Dayton's perhaps. It sucks because the trunk is obviously open. I wish we could see what was in that trunk. It has a velour interior and a chain link steering wheel. And then we get to the next page and you get 2 beautiful young women inside of the car. I wish we could see what's inside of the trunk though, because obviously it's my favorite part of lowriding is the hydraulics. 69 times, Imperial's Car Club. He is out of, I believe, Stockton. Yeah, Stockton, and then that's why he is on Campbell wheels, the actual Zeniths. So, like I said before, most people in NorCal were actually on Zeniths. When you were in Los Angeles, it was mostly true spokes and a mix of Daytons. Mostly true spokes, though. As well, you could see from the magazine. It's not me just making shit up. Paint job is pretty dope. So, yeah, dope paint job. And then we get to Midnighters 53, sitting on trues. I don't know if this car was lifted, but it's a nice, 53 to check out. The Victoria, this is a 56 Ford. It's pretty cool to see all the Fords that people were making into cars. I'm not sure if this car was lifted, but keep in mind the first lowrider that we know of was actually a 54 Ford, so it's not bad to see Fords. You usually don't see them too much in this era. They were definitely more prevalent, and I wouldn't mind seeing more Fords come out, that were fully built. Then we get this Camaro. This shit's badass. So there's so many things about this picture that makes it badass. He's sitting at trues. That's dope. He has a California top. That's dope. And then the King Palm in the background. This whole aura about this photo is definitely badass. This is probably one of my favorite photos from 1985, the issues. It's just overall badass. The chop top, it looks good, but you got to remember this is a unibody. So with it being a unibody, this car probably ended up in the junkyard a couple years later if this car was cut. Definitely beautiful. He has some flakes in that paint. It's definitely a beautiful candy paint job. But you can see Los Angeles in the 80s. It's just badass. Everything about this, Hollywood style, definitely one of my favorites. And then we get to September of 1985. You got Lisa Lisa on the front, you got that freestyle music popping. Open it up, you got the 77 Coupe de Ville. It has swivel seats, velour interior with the button tuck. Midnight Cruiser, Elegance Car Club out of Montebello. I believe they're still around. Actually, I think I've taken pictures of some of their cars. El Juguete, the toy. So this is a nice 66 Impala. You got the velour interior. You got the swivel seats, as you've seen so far. It was very popular to go with those swivel seats. Paint job, overall, pretty well. It looks like he has some Daytons on here. If this car pulled up today, I think it would do pretty well. But that's the Lowrider of the month, El Juguete. And then California Dreamers. You got these mini trucks. So mini trucks started becoming popular, around this era. You had Japanese cars that were kind of becoming more prevalent in American culture. And this is just to show that, you had these dancing bed trucks, which was a brand new concept in this era. They're both sitting on Porsche wheels, it looks like. So lowriding, Porsche, and mini trucks all coming together, and that's what you get here. And then we get Norris Quinceañera out of Norwalk, Califas. This is a Monte Carlo Majestics Car Club. I think these are Daytons because, I'm just gonna say because it's, in SoCal, he's riding on Daytons, but these could be Zeniths, but I'm just gonna assume that they're probably Daytons. But you got the Quinceañera, you got Spanish Gold. This is a car out of San Quentin Valley. So this is kind of funky because his grill is kind of funky. Dancing bed, weird kind of custom grill. He's sitting on, it looks like McLean's. Pretty funky. October, this is probably one of the most popular cars in Lowrider magazine that they wanted to make popular. He got the louvered hood and stuff, and it's a real custom. This is a 72 Caprice. This paint job, Spirit Car Club, I think this is very timeless kind of done. It definitely feels early lowriding, but I think it's done really well. He's on trues. Beautiful car. I mean, if this pulled up today, I think it would do pretty well. Malo, California top, Hollywood top, Target top, it's all the same shit. But just to show that was very popular, very prominent. This is something that they used to do a lot of in the 80s, at least in SoCal. And then, during the 90s, that's where everybody else did it. Tower of Power. This is a Bel Air. Let's see, I can't remember what year Bel Air this is. Honestly, I can't remember what year Bel Air this is, but this is a custom, He has the louvered hood, a 57 interior. I don't think that this initially is a 57. Tower Power is definitely what Lowrider magazine found very interesting. Later on in the 90s, we'll see it come back. This is funky, but it comes back even worse in the 90s. So wait for that. We got this Burgundy Lust. This is Grand Prix. He's sitting on some cleans, it looks like. You know, Grand Prix don't really get that much love in the low riding world. They're not my favorite G-body, but Majestic's Car Club, got the blue Hawaiian. Definitely looks like some Matrix style paint job on it. Body Heat, Together Car Club. He's sitting on some Trues, you know. I see Together Car Club, it's Pico Rivera, but I see Together Car Club definitely very prominent in Chicago these days, in case you guys don't know. Midwest lowriders, just want to show, you know, there was lowriders out here in the Midwest in '85. You know, a lot of people think that there wasn't that many lowriders. This is actually a show that was held in Rock Falls, Sterling, Illinois. This is showing there's cars from all over. There's a couple cars from Ohio in this one. There's cars from Indianapolis. There's cars from Chicago, Wisconsin. Lowriding was popping, you know, during this era. Then we get to 1985. You got Crush Groove on the front. Check out this Cadillac Empire Caddy. Beautiful out of Gilroy. Paint job, kind of some funky graphics. Not funky in a bad way, but definitely you could tell that of its era. And then he looks like he's sitting on some Daytons. You got tinted windows. You really don't see tinted windows on lowriders anymore, but you got Danny's Gold, Lifestyle Car Club, sitting on Trues. These look like 14x7s. Nice paint job. If this pulled up today, I think it will still turn heads. Sitting 520s, obviously. And then La Bamba. This was the cover truck, La Bamba. And then Arcos Iris, you know, another Salt Lake City, Monte Carlo. Paint job definitely looks of its era. Interior looks fly, but, you know, low riding Salt Lake City. And then City's Finest, 81 Monte Carlo, out of Colton, California. Airbrushing, you know, roof on the top, the sunroof. And then you got some, sitting on some type of bolt-ons. I can't tell what type of, they almost look like McLean's based on the center cap, but can't tell off the top of my head. And then Passionate Dreams, a 70 Monte Carlo. Now, if you remember that Monte Carlo from earlier in the magazine, and look at this one, bro, this looks way better. This is a beautiful car. When you lay these things out, they look beautiful. You can definitely tell that this car is lifted. So, you know, you see that little picture up in the corner. It shows it with it locked up. Right now, I'm not sure. I don't think it's laid out. I think it's like mid-ride height, but can't tell because, you know, but beautiful looking car. And then we get to December of 1985. You know, you got to start to see that mini truck on the front. Let's take out Lowrider Hydraulics. Let's look at their ad real quick. You know, you got these 30 spoke wheels. They're 13x7 reversed for $165. Lugs are included. And you also had a 50 spoke version of that. Get rid of your funky 14-inch wheels and ride with the new 13x7. And then get lifted sides too. So you get that side to side for $265. And then you got those blowout specials. Those Venetian blinds that, you know, go on eBay if they're OGs for like damn near $2,000 now, $30. Chrome headlight visors, $15. They're still about that price, you know, get those repops. 15x20s, premium sportways, $40. Obviously with inflation, these prices go up a little bit, but damn, you're not getting premium sportways for anything near $40 if they're OG sportways, let alone some Cokers. So Cokers are definitely like the $250. No, I think they're closer to $150, $200 a pop. But you get some premium sportways. Damn, those things are like almost $300 a tire today. Pop trunk kits, $18. That's gone up, but they're not as universal. You know, we kind of repop like Impala ones or those types of things. Lowrider license plate frames, $2. That's definitely, you're picking up maybe closer to $30 today. Rabbit ear antennas, $30. Those are probably closer to like 100 something, 150 if you were to find some. Then fiberglass fenders, just want to show, or the skirts, just to show, you know, people were doing fiberglass in this era. You can get a complete hydraulic setup, which is $350, which is probably going to be a Finnerstone setup. It's interesting because in the setup that they show, it's only a 1-pump, 2-cylinder setup. So you're probably lifting, I've heard stories where people lifted only one side of the car. It was usually, I believe, the front that got lifted first. So you could kind of drag a little bit, but the back stayed stagnant. And then you would cut at a different side. But I mean, if you wanted to order, you can go to San Jose or you can go to Richmond, California and order your setup. It's pretty dope to see some of those pricings. And let's get into this. You got the Sweet Chariot. It's a 79 Cadillac out of Odessa, Texas. For being a Texas car, we've seen some crazy things. These wheels, not my favorite. I think these are McLean's. Interior's on point. I mean, for the era, it's on point. Paint job's good. I think this is a pretty solid car, especially from Texas. Not trying to talk ill on Texas. It's just during the 80s, there was some funky ass shit going on in the southwest corner. I mean, you got New Mexico, you got Texas. There's some funky things. So that last car is on point. Wattsville, California, beautiful Cadillac. This is the first car that I remember seeing from the 80s that had, or from 85 at least, this segment has gold wires. He's sitting on Dayton, so some Daytonas, cross-lace, beautiful Cadillac. I mean, if this pulled up today, I think this could hold its weight. I mean, Coupe de Ville, those things are hard as fuck to find now. And then you got this Troca. I think this is New Mexico somewhere. It's hard, like I said. Lowrider magazine didn't pay as much emphasis on a lot of these things. Sometimes they would just post a picture, and you had to guess where it is. I want to guess that this was New Mexico, but this might not be based on how many the huge city. This might be actually Los Angeles. I'm unaware. If you guys know, drop it in the comments below. And you got Satin Doll Group Car Club. This is a Lincoln, a baby Lincoln. Interior satin. That's something that definitely doesn't happen too much anymore with the California top. So that seemed very popular, And then you got this out of England. I mean, just to show people were lifting cars. You had the other one earlier in the and we were talking about in the magazine from Sweden. You got England. So this car is actually lifted. That Volkswagen that we saw earlier was not lifted. This one has a Finnerstone chrome tanks. He has some deltas, some slowdowns. I mean, he has 2 solenoids. I mean, to be lowriding out in England in 1985, bro. We were lowriding out there, man. And then 2 Yum, got a Porsche. Just want to show Lowrider magazine was pretty diverse in this era. I mean, I think that's a right-hand drive Porsche, at least based on the photo, unless it could be mirrored, so it's hard to tell. And then Nasty Cab, this is a mini truck out of SoCal. So Nissan truck, dancing bed. He's sitting on some Porsche wheels, it looks like. And Mystical, got the glass house, sitting on some McLean's. Paint job, definitely a lot of like ghost patterns in there. I don't even hear that term used around honestly anymore, the ghost patterns, where ghost patterns were just essentially, you could see kind of a little bit of it. It really wasn't too prominent. Essentially you were taking and you're going through and doing some shading. So you take like an airbrush gun, and before you spray your color on top, you get your base, you spray it down, you put the patterns in with like a darker color. It could be gray, could be black, could be a darker, the same color. And then you spray your candy on top of it and it pops through. He had a louvered hood, and then he also has the louvered top of the hood, like the top of the cabin, and he has a 4-pump setup, again, just to show that people were running, those 4-pump setups. So, and that's it. That's lowriding in 1985. If you have anything, drop it below. What surprised you about lowriding in 1985? What's something that we brought to the light that you were unaware of? What are some trends that you're happy that are done with? And what trends would you like to see come back? The prominent thing, most people were on true spokes, A lot of people, the most popular interior were velvet interiors, You saw Impalas, but there were a diverse amount of cars. There were a lot more Volkswagens that I didn't necessarily include because they, for the most part, felt kind of stock in today's era, especially at least. So I did not include that. But this is it for my 1985 collection of Lowrider magazine. Drop the comments below if you liked it, if you want to see more of this. I plan on moving on to the other years, but let me know if this is something that you're actually interested in. I have a huge Lowrider magazine collection here, as you can see. I go through and scan each individual page myself, so it does take a little bit of time. I wish there was an easier way, but take a moment, pause the video, let me know what you think, and hopefully we can keep on this journey. Thanks for spending time with me. Peace.